Imagine an era where women were silenced, stripped of power, and denied their basic rights. This is the Middle Ages, a brutal world of kings, knights, and bishops who held absolute rule over every soul. But what if I told you that even in this darkness, 6 women shattered every rule ever written? They didn't just survive. They governed empires, commanded vast armies, and defied the Pope himself. These weren't your typical fairy tale princesses. They were queens who plotted wars, empresses who saved falling thrones, abbesses who gave orders to popes, and a peasant girl who terrified the entire kingdom of France. Today, on Medieval Crazy History, we reveal 6 of the most powerful and fearless women of the Middle Ages. We're bringing you the cold. Brutal facts taken directly from ancient chronicles, secret papal documents, and groundbreaking archaeological finds. Prepare yourself. The history you were taught in school is about to change forever. Let's start with number 1, the teenage girl who heard voices and turned the tide of a 100-year war. Joan of Arc, the peasant who terrorized an empire born in 1412 in the poverty-stricken village of Domremy. Joan was an illiterate 17-year-old peasant in a France torn apart by the 100 Years' War. Yet, she stood before King Charles VII and made a chilling promise: "I will drive the English out of your kingdom." At the time, England controlled half of France, and Charles was a broken king hiding in Chinon. Joan claimed to be guided by the voices of saints, a detail preserved in the meticulous 1431 trial records at Rouen. To the shock of the royal court, she passed a grueling theological examination in Poitiers. The result? She was granted custom-made plate armor, a sword, and command over an army of 5,000 men. In May 1429, she didn't win with magic, she won with brutal audacity. She coordinated aggressive assaults on English strongholds. During the battle for the Les Tourelles fortress, she was struck by an arrow in the shoulder. Most men would have retreated. Joan pulled the arrow out and returned to the front lines. The terrified English began calling her the Maid of the Devil, while the Duke of Bedford wrote to the Pope, desperate to brand her a heretical witch, after liberating Orleans and seeing Charles crowned in Reims. Joan's luck ran out. Captured and sold to the English for £10,000, she faced a 5-month show trial presided over by the pro-English Bishop Pierre Cauchon. She was charged with heresy, not just for her voices, but for the sin of wearing men's clothing. Despite the pressure, she never faltered, famously stating, "I heard the voice of God 13 years ago, on May 30th, 1431. At just 19 years old, she was burned alive before a crowd of 10,000 in Rouen. Eyewitnesses, including chronicler Pierre Cauchon, swore her heart remained unburned by the flames. Joan of Arc wasn't a trained soldier. She was a charismatic visionary who unified a fractured nation. Without this teenage girl, France might still be an English province today. Her story proves that in the heart of the Middle Ages, a woman's conviction could move armies and topple empires. Number 2. Eleanor of Aquitaine, the sovereign duchess who achieved something unprecedented in medieval history. She became the queen of both France and England. Born around 1122, she inherited the Duchy of Aquitaine at age 15. This territory was larger, richer, and more cultured than the French royal domain itself. To secure this prize, the French King Louis VI rushed a marriage between Eleanor and his son, Louis VII. But it was a collision of 2 different worlds. Louis was a pious, inexperienced man raised for the church. Eleanor was a brilliant, ambitious intellectual who influenced every state decision. In 1147, she did the unthinkable. She convinced her husband to take her on the Second Crusade. According to the Chronicles of William of Tyre, she arrived with 300 noble ladies in armour. When the crusade failed in Antioch, rumours of a scandalous affair between Eleanor and her uncle, Raymond of Poitiers, shattered the royal marriage. They returned in 1149 as strangers, and by 1152 the marriage was annulled. Eleanor didn't waste a single day. Within 8 weeks of her annulment, she defied to kidnapping attempts and married Henry Plantagenet, the Duke of Normandy, a man 11 years her junior. 2 years later, Henry became King of England, creating the legendary Angevin Empire. Eleanor bore him 8 children, including icons like Richard the Lionheart and King John, but the marriage was a battlefield. Fueled by Henry's blatant infidelities, Eleanor did the ultimate. She incited her own sons to rebel against their father in 1173, captured while attempting to escape. She was imprisoned by Henry for 16 years. For nearly 2 decades, the most powerful woman in Europe was a royal prisoner in castles like Winchester. But she was never broken. Upon Henry's death in 1189, she emerged at age 67 to act as Regent of England. She personally negotiated the astronomical ransom for her son, Richard, 150,000 marks, 2/3 of England's annual income, and at the age of 80, she was still on the front lines. personally defending the castle of Mirabeau against French invaders. Eleanor died in 1204, having reshaped the map of Europe. She was the patron of troubadours, the creator of the concept of courtly love, and the grandmother of Europe, from her tomb at Fontevraud Abbey. She remains a symbol of a woman who refused to be a pawn in a man's game. Number 3. Empress Theodora, the Byzantine powerhouse who rose from a common prostitute to the saviour of Constantinople. Born around the year 500, the daughter of a bearkeeper at the Hippodrome. She was orphaned at 12 and became an actress. In the medieval world, actress was a polite term for a public dancer and prostitute. According to the eyewitness chronicler Procopius of Caesarea, Theodora performed in vulgar. Scandalous shows that made her rich and infamous by the age of 20. Her life changed when she met Justinian, the nephew of the emperor. Theodora wasn't just a consort. She sat on the throne as his equal, co-signed imperial laws, and was the mastermind behind the Code of Justinian. She personally reformed divorce laws and property rights, allowing mothers to keep custody of their children for the first time in history. As the palace was surrounded, Justinian panicked and prepared to flee by boat. Theodora stopped him. According to Procopius, she delivered an immortal speech. "Purple is a noble shroud. I would rather die an empress than live as a fugitive." Her courage shamed the men into staying. The general Belisarius was ordered to the Hippodrome, where he crushed the revolt in one of the bloodiest urban massacres of late antiquity. From that day on, Theodora ruled from the shadows. She built the magnificent Hagia Sophia, founded convents for former prostitutes, and systematically dismantled her political rivals. Even Procopius, who hated her and called her a demon in his secret writings, couldn't deny her genius. She died of cancer in 548, but her impact was eternal. Without her backbone, the Byzantine Empire might have collapsed 900 years earlier. From performing with geese in the circus to being worshipped as a goddess on imperial coins, Theodora's life is the ultimate testament to raw ambition. She proved that power isn't about where you start, but where you have the courage to stand when the world is on fire. Number 4. Hildegard of Bingen, the German nun who was a physician, composer, theologian, and advisor to emperors. She was, without a doubt, the most educated woman of the Middle Ages, born in 1098. She was given to a monastery at age 8. Since childhood, she experienced vivid visions of light, a phenomenon she meticulously documented in her spiritual masterpiece, Civias. But Hildegard wasn't just a passive mystic. She was a pioneer of empirical science. In her treatises Physica and Cossi et Cure, she diagnosed diseases using herbs, minerals, and diet. She prescribed badger liver for gout and honeyed wine. For insomnia treatments she tested on actual patients at the Rupertsberg convent, which she founded in 1150 despite fierce resistance from local clergymen. Her 77 sacred melodies, preserved in ancient codices, are still performed today and laid the groundwork for Renaissance polyphony. Hildegard defied every rule of her time. She preached in public, an act strictly forbidden for women, and travelled over 3,000 kilometres on horseback at the age of 72 to confront corrupt bishops. Even the most powerful men in Europe feared her prophetic authority. She advised Emperor Frederick Barbarossa and famously excommunicated a nobleman for desecrating a cemetery. When he died shortly after, her legend as a direct messenger of God became unshakable. She died in 1179 at the age of 81. In 2012, the Church officially recognized her as a Doctor of the Church, a title held by only a few women in history. Hildegard proved that even within the walls of a cloister, a woman could dominate science, art, and politics in a patriarchal world. Her genius is confirmed by 9 original books and over 400 letters to popes and kings. Historians like Barbara Newman point to her as a unique case of a woman who wielded divine authority to silence her male critics. Number 5. Christine de Pizan, the Italian widow who became the first professional female writer in Western Europe and the true proto-feminist of the Middle Ages. Born in 1364 in Venice, she moved to Paris as the daughter of the king's astrologer. Life was comfortable until she became a widow at 25, with 3 children to raise. Facing crippling debts and a chaotic political landscape under King Charles VI, she was left with nothing. Christine did the unthinkable, turning to writing to survive at the age of 33. Between 1400 and 1405, she published 15 books, living entirely off her earnings. We're not talking about charity, we're talking about business. Records in the French National Archive show she commanded 100 francs per manuscrit, a massive sum at the time. She wasn't just writing poetry, she was destroying myths. Her masterstroke arrived in 1405, the Book of the City of Ladies. It was a direct, brutal rebuttal to the misogyny of the Romance of the Rose. In it, Christine built a metaphorical city inhabited by 190 historical heroines, from Empress Theodora to Hypatia, using the logic of Aristotle and the theology of St. Jerome to dismantle the lie that women were intellectually inferior. She argued that God created Eve from Adam's side not for subjection, but for equality. She became a court favourite, writing biographies for kings and manuals for noblewomen. Even when the French Civil War forced her into a convent, she didn't stop. She emerged at 55 to write the Ditty de Joan d'Arc, celebrating the victory of Joan of Arc. She died around 1430, leaving behind 50 autographed manuscripts, many of which she illuminated herself. Christine de Pizan didn't ask for charity. She proved that a woman's intellect could sustain a family in a feudal world of steel and blood. As historians like Charity Cannon Willard point out, without Christine, the history of feminist literature would have been delayed by centuries. She turned ink into power. Number 6. Teresa of Leon, the woman who paved the road for the Kingdom of Portugal and fought tooth and nail to keep it. Born around 1080 as the illegitimate daughter of King Afonso VI, she was far more than a pawn in royal games. In 1096, she received the County of Portugal as a fiefdom. When her husband, Henry of Burgundy, died in 1112, Teresa did the unthinkable at 32. She took full command. Teresa was no passive widow. She was a master of diplomacy and war. She reconquered Coimbra, fought brutal civil wars against her own sister, Queen Arocca, and fortified the borders with new castles. Her power was so absolute that Pope Paschal II addressed her as Regina Queen. In official papal bulls, a recognition of her de facto sovereignty. For 18 years, she promoted monastic life and urban development, effectively building the administrative foundation of a nation. But success breeds rivalry. Her son, Afonso Henriquez, viewed her as to influence by her Galician lover, Fernando Pérez de Traba. On June 24, 1128, at the Battle of São Mamede, the son rose against the mother. Afonso defeated her, exiling her to the castle of Montemoro Velho, where she died in 1130, some say by poison. Teresa remains one of the most complex figures in European history, a widow who ruled with armies in a world that insisted women should be silent. As historian José Matoso famously argued, without Teresa's wars, her diplomacy, and her iron-willed governance, Portugal would not have declared its independence in 1140. She was the rebel mother who gave birth to a kingdom. From the battlefield genius of Joan of Arc to the political intellect of Eleanor of Aquitaine, the divine ambition of Theodora, the scientific brilliance of Hildegard, the professional grit of Christine de Pizan, and the sovereign defiance of Teresa of Leon, these 6 women didn't just live in the Middle Ages. They defined it. They shattered the chains of their era and forced history to acknowledge their power. If these stories changed the way you view the medieval world, smash that like button, subscribe to Medieval Crazy History, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Tell us in the comments which of these 6 women do you find the most impressive and who should we cover in our next deep dive.